G'day. So, we're looking at everything that there is to know about the popular Freedom Rugby Union. This is the league where you will be running a team, running a company. I'm going to go through each of the drop down menus. Again, eventually, when this is up and running fully, where you'll have to make a decision on what team you're running, you'll have access to all this until we reach that point. There is no deadline on picking a team. So that would mean research, watch this video, plus research any additional information I might provide. And then once this is up and running, where you have access to it from your home computer, meaning the actual site, so you can check it out on yourself as on your own as opposed to checking this video, then we'll be setting a deadline in terms of when to choose a company. As noted, there are 5 companies not available, the 3 that are in red, as well as Camelot and Lanita. Um, Again, this is just some information on teams that have been in the Grand Championship, which is sort of your final match, your Stanley Cup, your Super Bowl equivalent. This is information about each of the cities that have a team or are thinking of having a team in the league. Okay, this is really more just a background to the league, and more for people who like to read a little bit more into it as opposed to just getting to the main parts. This is something new that has been added where whoever scores the most amount of tries gets an additional boost in training. And so that player will actually go up in skill and as a result in overall player value. In addition to that, the team that owns that player will get additional revenue as a result. And again, the purpose of running a business is to make money. This is the history of the league. Again, some of this is fictional, although it's going to be as used as the sort of background for what's happening in the league. And then some of it is actually what happened. So, and if you have any questions in regards to this, feel free to let me know. And again, you can always go back and check some of the information, or pause the video in the event I've gone over this too quickly. These are past champions. Um, Again, right now we have a dynasty where the Log Harbor North Dragons have won more championships in a row than any team in history. Um, but as you can see, this is not the best indicator of what team is good, what team is bad, because sometimes teams will spend a lot in order to win a championship. Rankings, it's basically the league sim. And so when the league was simmed for this upcoming season, this is what's happened. When it was simmed for last upcoming season, this is what happened. As you can see, the Lock Harbor North Dragons, the highest they were ever ranked in any of the simulations was second, but they happened to come first in the actual running of the league. And so as you can see, sometimes if teams are very close, there'll be differences in how they rate. And so, though this is a good indicator, especially this, of how teams rate compared to one another in terms of overall skill level, it's not the only thing that should be used. And definitely from a financial standpoint, it's definitely not the sole thing you should use because obviously you're not looking at age of players. Because a player could be very highly skilled and about to retire. So these are the rules. This I'm going to go scroll down every 5 seconds because this is probably the most important. And so every 5 seconds, I'll probably be scrolling down. Actually, that is all for this page. Okay, so you do want to sort of look at these in great detail because this will tell you how things are run. And again, if there's any things that have been left out, again, do let me know. This is in relation to training, how trading works. Again, if you go through some of the past years of each individual team, you'll see players that are highlighted in different colors, and that relates to certain things. Likewise, this season, you'll actually see players highlighted in orange already because that indicates players who will be going down in skill, assuming they don't retire. This just shows previous seasons. The last champion was the Lock Harbor North Dragons last season. Again, a season takes a full month, real life month, to run. At the beginning of every season, you have any trades that go through. And then you have preseason where hopefully you've played a derby match. For now, all teams have played a derby match for this coming season. And then from there, you have the actual season itself, playoffs, and the grand championship. And then teams are awarded cash based on how well they did, and teams are relegated and promoted. To be relegated means you go from tier one, which is the top division, to tier two. To be promoted means you go from tier two to tier one. At the present time, the bottom three teams at the end of a season are relegated. Each divisional winner will be promoted. There is planned, there is expansion planned, although when that will happen, I'm not sure. As it stands right now, I'm just adding one team in every season or two as time permits. That's one of the reasons why the Western Division has 7 teams and the Central and the East have 6. Let's look at the team, shall we? Again, your team information, it's going to have a lot of information on your team page. Okay. What you're really worried about is the budget, the position, although if you're not really familiar with rugby, I wouldn't really worry about that. Just make sure you have a balance of enough players per position. Recognize that certain a player can play similar positions. So, for instance, flankers and props and 8 men all usually play a similar type of role with certain differences. A prop and the person who hooks the ball back can also play a similar type of role. Locks are sort of unique in and amongst themselves, so you want to make sure you have enough of those because those types of players are not easily replaced by any other position. Any of the back positions are relatively the same, except wings are usually quite fast and fullbacks are usually quite fast and they tackle quite well. So that's sort of the only difference in terms of backs. And by backs, I'm talking about scrum halves, fly halves, centers, wings, and fullbacks. Again, if this is a little too overwhelming for you, all you really need to worry about is when you're looking at your reserves, which again, your starters are your top 15, your bench are who you're going to replace in a game, which starters you could replace with a bench player, and then reserves are everybody else who's not good enough to be a starter or bench. When you're looking at your reserve players, you want to make sure that do you have enough props? Do you have enough? And really, 2 props is good enough. One person who hooks the ball back is good. You want to have 1 or 2 locks. Flankers and 8 men, you want to have at least 2 of those. 1 or 2 scrum halves, fly halves would be good. And again, if you have an abundance of centers and no scrum half, fly halves, that works as well. And then at least 1 wing and at least 1 fullback, taking into consideration that once players turn a certain age, their levels start to decrease. And again, you'll want to check the rules as well as training for more information on that. In addition to that, you'll see all the information in terms of what the team did before. A lot of these teams were run by previous people who have since no longer ran them for whatever reason. And so that's why you might notice trades, or if they needed a player in a specific position and it was fairly obvious, meaning if somebody were to look at their reserves and say, hey, you know what, they have no locks, then a trade would be made for them, assuming another team had that positional player and it worked. A reminder, if you were to ever trade a player, you have to trade it for the value, and that value does not change until they turn the age of 32. That's the only variance you can get. Furthermore, if you have a player and they're not that good, you cannot release them. And so you will see trades where players who are not that good are traded from one team to another. And again, there's a number of strategies in relation to running this sim. Championships, if the team has a championship, you'll see some information there. I used to list previous matches for certain teams that asked for it, but I no longer list that. So let's go to the next team, shall we? And so if you notice here, there's two ways of checking out your teams. You can click on the drop-down menus, or the next team alphabetically, you can click on the arrow. The reason for that is that allows you to cycle through all the teams. You can quickly check out, okay, does this team need a certain player in a certain position? And also, right off the bat, you can see, oh, these are how many players are going down in value, and from there you can make a determination during the off season or prior to the off season. Hey, does this team need anything? Maybe I have it and I can take advantage of their situation and give them a deal which is to my benefit. And again, you can't sell a player for more or less than their worth, so whatever their value is. And again, it says that in the rules as well as training, what their value is. But at the same time, certain times you might be able to get a better player than you would otherwise because a team needs certain things, or they're in a situation where they have a lot of players retiring, and really you want to have at least 30 players, and you kind of don't want to have above 38 because once you get to 40, you don't get any more draftees until you go below 40. Again, more information on that can be found in the rules and training info um, pages. You'll notice here you have your rival team. That's the team that if you beat and it's based on geography, but if you beat that team during an exhibition in the season, so not during the regular season, has to be exhibition, you will get a certain amount of financial funds. So it's usually good at the beginning of any off season to request a rival match with your rival. Okay. So I'm just going to cycle through the teams here. Again, some of these teams are expansion-based teams. Some of these teams you can actually click on the player and it'll show specifics of the player. Again, as time permits, I'll be adding more to this. Some teams have more information on players in that amount of detail and some less. Okay, and so this is the Bay Grizzlies. This is the Beach Coyotes, and I'm going to try and go through this quickly because I'm already at 13 minutes. This is the Brunstone Avalanche. This is the Camelot Wasps. This team, again, you cannot acquire just because it's been used as an OP'd bot team just to provide some level of competition for the people who currently run teams in the simulation. Okay. This is Cliffstone Eagles. They just recently joined the league. Cresthenge Elves recently joined the league. The Saddle Crocodiles have been around for about 10 seasons, although if you notice their financial state and their situation in the rankings, you would think they were a new team, maybe. Okay, so you do want to sort of go through the teams before you choose your top 5 that you're going to request once that becomes available, and ensure that you're picking a team that will be able to be easy to run. Okay, and so obviously, if you're looking at a team that has a lot of players that are going to retire, that right off the bat, so a lot of players in orange, that right off the bat should be a concern for you and maybe a team you're not willing to consider. Although if you do have a lot of players, so if you have 40, 39, 38, then well, maybe you could deal with it. Again, just like any company, there's positives and negatives. And again, as I've noted before, cash flow or budget is something else you want to definitely look at. And again, as I noted, if at any time during the video you find that you've missed some information, you can always pause it, go back, take a gander at it. And as I noted before, until we actually get this where you can access this from home in some manner, we won't be putting a deadline on when to choose a team. So right now, if you are checking this out, you're only doing it to sort of get some information ahead of when you finally choose a team, which there is no deadline set for that yet. And we're at the new team. Again, if you ever are at a page and you want to go back to the home page, you click the PRU logo and it'll take you back there. So that's basically all the information that you need. Again, when a team plays a match in an exhibition, that information will come up where you can see who scored your tries, who scored the conversions, penalty goals, and any drop goals. Plus, you also have statistics of the match. And if there's anything else that I've missed that you note, hey, you have a question about, please let me know. And hopefully this video wasn't too long, and have a good day. Later.